الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها إن ذلك على الله يسير صدق الله العلي العظيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Continuing with the Tafsir of Surah Hadid, I just recited verse number 22. If you remember, just a recap of the last verse number 21, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was addressing by saying, Sabiqu ila maghfiratin min rabbikum. Rush towards or become hasty or take lead towards forgiveness from your Lord. And it counted the favor as this paradise, which is as vast as the earth and the skies combined. And it is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes for you, and it is easy for Him to dispense. In this ayah, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about it, starts out by saying, Ma asaba min musibatin fil ardi wala fi anfusikum. No affliction visits the land or yourselves, your nufus, but it is in a book before we bring it about. In other words, He's saying, nothing takes place on this earth or beyond it that has not already been documented. It has already been documented by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has already been decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has already been written about by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna dhalika ala Allahi yasir. And indeed, it is easy for Him to go ahead and do this. Yesterday we finished when we were talking about how a lot of people we are very quick to judge people as to how come you did this, how come you did this, or this person you're going to hell, or you're going to this, or you're going to be burning in this and whatnot. We are so quick to jump, or this person is kafir, this person is not Muslim, this person is this person is that. So easy to label people with these titles. Where we recited the ayah from Surah Sad, verse number 62, it said, وَقَالُوا مَا لَنَا لَا نَرَى رَجَالًا كُنَّا نَعُدُّهُمْ مِنَ الْأَشْرَارِ. What is and they will say, why is it that we do not see here men whom we used to count among the bad ones? What happens is that we count people among the bad ones, we consider them to be pretty bad, and because of one or two actions that we have seen from them, and right away we label them as bad. But here, the ayat is actually telling us, that day you will be saying, how come we don't see those people whom we consider to be evil? Why? Because they're up in the paradise. You thought they were evil according to your perspective, according to your perception, according to your method and criteria, but they're not. They're actually enjoying the benefits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is important what Allah thinks of these individuals. You and I should not jump to the conclusion by saying that this person is bad, or this person is good, or this person is evil and whatnot. He said, Ma asaba min musibatin fil ardi wala fi anfusikum. There's not an affliction that visits the land or your nufus, your souls, but it is in a book before we bring it about. It's already been decreed. It already is written over there. And we were talking about this earlier as to, does that mean it brings some sort of coercion? It brings some sort of jabr? Because Islam is against, or at least our madhab is against the qaida jabr. It says, La jabra wa la tafweez al-amru bayn al-amrayn. There's no force or there's no complete freedom. It's actually something in between. La jabra, you're not forced into doing something, nor there's tafweez, complete freedom of everything that you want. There's something which is in sort of between. And this is where we pointed out that if everything is written about from before, does that bring coercion into insan? No, it doesn't. If Allah has already decreed something, that does mean this person is going to say, well, Yazid would always be bad. Why? Because it was already written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him to do such a thing. If it wasn't for Yazid, it would have been someone else who would have done that act of atrocity. So he was already written as bad, he was already written as evil, and therefore he was doing such a thing. And so no, this is a wrong criteria. Allah at the same time, by explaining these ayat, He also has said on numerous occasions in Quran that imma shakiran wa imma kafura, that Allah has given you complete freedom in this regard, that you are either grateful or you are ungrateful. You choose the path of goodness or you choose the path of evil. You have this ability to choose between the two. Yes, it is the anayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has guided you towards the right path, but the evil path is also open. With that knowledge, what you're going to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the awareness of that. With the freedom that He has given and bestowed upon the individuals, He has the knowledge of what path this individual is going to take. So it's not coercion by any means. You can go ahead and adopt whichever path you want to, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is well aware of it. That's why He says, no affliction visits the land or yourselves, but it is in a book before we bring it about. That is indeed easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see the word nabra'aha comes from the word bara'a, is in the meaning of coming into existence. God, who has created the earth and then created mankind, He placed many hardships and adversities in it for them. Floods for the earth, sickness, death for mankind, and so on and so forth. In history, we just gave the example. We read that Yazid said to Ahlul Bayt of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, when they became captives, that the adversity which has fallen upon you is due to your own actions. This is what he said to him. He said, the reason that you are now ruswa, the reason that you are captives and going through such humiliation is due to your own actions. And then he recited the ayat from Surah Shura, verse number 30. He said, وَمَا أَصَابَكُمْ. Actually, we were reciting Quran, we recited this ayat. It says, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُ عَن كَثِيرٍ. Surah Shura, verse number 30. He said, whatever affliction that may visit you is because of what you have earned yourself. And He excuses many an offense of yours. So he was quoting this ayah saying, Yazid was saying, he quoted this ayah and he said, look, the reason that you are now in such captivity, the reason you are now ruswa, is because you brought it upon yourself. According to this ayat of Quran, no affliction that may visit you is because of what you have earned or your hands have earned. Imam replied, our fourth Imam replied that this verse wasn't revealed for us. And then he recited the above mentioned verse that we just recited from Surah Hadid. He said, وَمَا مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُّصِيبَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مِّن قَبْلِ أَن نَّبْرَأَهَا. No affliction comes on the land and on your souls, except that we have written about it from before in the book. We had well documented it before. Imam said this is the ayat which is appropriate for us. Why? Which means that it was decreed from before by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this will take place and we will go through such difficulties to protect the religion of Islam. So don't look at it as something of a humiliation for us. Rather it is that we are humble and we are radi with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat Piji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Listen.
And then we also read another hadith, the reason for adversities on different people. This is where Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam recites. He says, إِنَّ الْبَلَاءَ لِلظَّالِمِ أَدَبٌ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِ إِمْتِحَانٌ وَلِلْأَنْبِيَاءِ دَرَجَةٌ وَلِلْأَوْلِيَاءِ كَرَامَةٌ. We say, well, you ask yourself a question. You and I understand if the musibat is coming upon us. But why is it coming upon prophets? Why is it coming upon ma'asumeen? The concept is because you do bad, musibat comes upon you. That is the concept. You do bad, you get penalized for that. Now Allah does penalize us sometimes on the earth, over here for some of the things that we have done. And we make, actually there's part of a dua, one of the duas that we recite, oh Allah, if you're going to penalize me in this life with the penalty and the punishment of this life, and save me from the punishment of the hereafter. I'd rather face the punishment over here then I pays the punishment over there, because we know the punishment of the hereafter. So we do make this dua a lot of times. But the question arises usually when we are inflicted with some sort of adversity or problem or turmoil is due to something that we have done. That is the common sense that people have. Oh, because of the musibah that is fallen upon someone is due to their actions. If that was the case, right away we look at that person and we say, look how unfortunate that person is. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken the blessings away from this individual. They must have done something wrong. Right away, this is the mentality, this is the notion that comes about. If that was the case, then prophets of Allah would be the top of the list as the most unfortunate individuals on the face of the earth. Forget about all the other prophets. Look at our own prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With all the musibat that he is facing throughout his life. When he goes propagation, how people are treating him, mocking him, throwing things at him to the extent that he's bleeding. When he's walking in his own city, there are people throwing garbage and rubbish upon him, and how he's dealing with that. And then among his own people, aside from the Jews and the Christians that were mocking Prophet for the religion, among the own people, and how kuffar were treating him after he had lost his sons. Mocking him, saying, look, there goes the person who's abtar. They said that. As ibn Wa'il said to Prophet, look, that's the person who's abtar, because Prophet had lost his sons. And so this was the treatment that he was receiving. And sometimes from his own camp, there were people who had brought Iman. They started judging Prophet. They started, questioning his decree. They started questioning, the things that he has said. This was one of the problems that Prophet was facing. So we would say, well, Prophet is facing all of these problems because of the things that he has done. He's ma'soom. He's the chosen one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's mahbub-e-ilahi. How could that be? So we understand sometimes the person who faces the most amount of afflictions and the adversities and the turmoil is probably the most beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are not facing any turmoil, if no turmoil has passed you or no musibat has come upon you, that means Allah has neglected you from giving you any type of challenges. The more turmoil and the adversity, the more you beloved in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because our Prophet, beginning of the life, he is yateen. What could be the worst thing than being yateen from the very young age of yours? And then the problems that he faced throughout his life, losing his partner, losing his biggest support in the form of Janab Khadija, in the form of Hazrat Abu Talib, and so on and so forth. So we see over here, Amir al-Mu'mineen, this is the answer as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes gives afflictions to ma'asumeen, anbiya. And yes, we understand Allah should give punishment to the zalimeen, but why to good people? This is the answer over here. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Innal bala'a liz-zalimi adabun. Hardship, turmoil, adversity for a tyrant is to warn and teach him manners. When Allah brings down hardship upon the tyrants, Allah wants to straighten them, to teach them a lesson, to teach them manners, and to warn them as to how it's not going to continue forever. When he brings when he brings bala onto a mu'min, it's imtihan. So why are you and I tried? Because Allah puts us through tests and tribulations. If we lose a loved one, we say, it's from Allah, He took it away. It was His amanat, He took it away. If He takes away the house Allah had given to us, He takes it away. So whatever He has given to us is His property, it's a loan, it's lent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's His trust, He can take it away whenever He wants. So for mu'mineen, it's a matter of imtihan. He tests mu'min to come out that which one of you open your mouth in discomfort and open your mouth in complaints to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you remain radi with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Third, walil anbiya'i darajatun. Why does He test the anbiya? Why are there calamities falling upon anbiya? So that anbiya may exceed in the levels from one another. That's why we see that not all the anbiyas are at the same level. There are different darajat for different anbiya. There are some of them among them who are just nabi. Then there are some among them who are alongside being nabi are also the rasul. Then among those rasul you find an elite group of ulul azm. And then among that elite group of ulul azm you find the hasti of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Among them you find people who are referred to as Khalilullah, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among them you find someone who's referred to as Kalimullah because he was able to speak with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among them you find of those who are considered to be Ruhullah, Nuhullah, and so on and so forth. So different Anbiya have different levels, and that is the reason that Allah tests them, sends afflictions to them, and which one of them come out on top shows that which one of them has the higher status. And then lastly, walil awliya karamatun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests the awliya. It means it is a means for them to attain the karamat. You see these karamat from even ordinary individuals. These are the awliya Allah. We see some of the messages that are learned from this particular verse from Surah Hadid. It says all the natural calamities, floods, earthquakes, you name it, that lead to the destruction of the lands and infrastructure, musibatun fil arde, or wounds that might lead to one's death, fi anfusikum, which we name as accidents, are all based on a system well thought out and established from before by the Almighty God. Everything is written, everything is decreed, well thought out. It is already in the book written. Nothing is accidental, nothing is coincidental, nothing is spontaneous, nothing is just happening spontaneous. It might be spontaneous for you and I and accidental for you and I, but it is already written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is accidental and nothing out of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مِّن قَبْلِ أَن نَّبْرَأَهَا. It is well documented in the book that we have from way before. Existence is accounted for all that takes place in it from the nature's aspect, and it's inevitable and it is recorded. He said, Ma asaba illa fi kitab. Nothing, it denies everything. Ma asaba, nothing happens illa, exceptionally, illa fi kitab, except that it is well documented. No event is news to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in other words. It might be news to you and I, but it is not news to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that is taking place, it is already in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not be surprised about the control of God over all the natural incidents. It says, Inna dhalika alallahi yasir. It is indeed easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not that difficult for Him to perform these things. This verse, which says that Allah has complete knowledge of all the things that befall, whether on the land or on the soul, it is written in Lawh Mahfuz, knowing that it is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just imagine if you have a book which has all the information written, you know, those movies which like the Back to the Future type of things, that you went into the future, and you brought this information back. Now you're in the past again, and all that is going to take place. So there's no news for you. It's not going to surprise you. You already have the knowledge of all of those things. This is so that you don't feel sad if you lose something. This is where I want your attentions. Why all of this? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that He has knowledge of everything? Yes, He has knowledge of everything. How does that benefit us? This is what it benefits us. This is so that you don't feel sad if you lose something, nor feel too good if you possess something. Objective behind these adversities is to keep your hearts detached from these favors which are unstable and transient. It is a test for you. When you know that He has already decreed, now there's no reason to get sad about it. There's no reason to feel too excited about it. It's already in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Imam said, we are among those who do not become sad for losing something, nor get excited for gaining something. We consider everything unstable and transient, and have closed our eyes for the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is backed by a hadith from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. When he was asked about the tafsir of these verses, he said, do you know that Ali and his household were facing turmoil after the death of the Prophet? Was that due to their own actions when they were pure, Ahl Bayt, and infallible? He added, Inna Rasulullah, even Rasul himself, Inna Rasulullah kana yatubu ila Allah wa yastaghfiru fi kulli yawmin wa laylatin mi'ata marratin min ghayri dhanbin inna Allah yakhussu awliyahu bil masa'ib. He said Prophet used to do tawbah continuously, every day, every night, and recite istighfar 100 times without having committed any sins. He's ma'soom, he's infallible, doesn't commit sins, yet he's doing istighfar 100 times a day. Allah gives musibah to His closest in order to see them increase in their sabr, in their forbearance, in their patience, and so on and so forth. So it says in Surah Shura, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُ عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. Whatever afflictions that may visit you is because of what your hands have earned. And He excuses many, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an offense of yours. Some have contradicted by saying that the masaib in this verse is not referring towards the masaib of this world. Rather, it is referring towards the masaib of the hereafter, the musibah that will come upon, the punishment that will come upon, the thing that you have done now, you will be receiving it over there. Ashabul Yameen and Ashabul Shimal, book given in your right hand or book either given in your left hand. It said, since the world is a place of action, it's not a place of reward or punishment. This is a naive mistake on their behalf. There are numerous verses and hadiths which mention that insan is sometimes punished for his actions, her actions within in this world. Although the world isn't a place of reward and punishment, and not all accounts are cleared here, but completely denying that this phenomena does not exist in this world is being naive about it. Yes, some of the afflictions that do come about on certain individuals is due to the fact of some of the sins that they have committed. As I said before, we recite in a dua as well, "Oh Allah, punish me over here before you punish me in the hereafter. I'm ready for the punishment over here, then I'm ready for the punishment of the hereafter." So what did Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the biggest example of that as to how sometimes we are punished for the things in this world, if you look into Surah Rum, verse number 41, it says, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. He said corruption has appeared in land and sea because of the doings of the people's hands, that He may make them taste something of what they have done, so they may come back. So they may come back. Come back where? Come back to the right path. When? Right here in this life, not in the hereafter. In the hereafter, yes, they will come back to me. But He wants them to come back in this life. So how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want them to come back? By afflicting them with punishment. By punishing them in this world. He said corruption appeared in the land and the sea because of the doings of certain people. Some people did this. Corruption was seen in the land and the sea. Allah punishes them over here so they may come back to the right path. That tells us right here, Surah Rum, verse number 41, that Allah punishes a lot of people within this world so they may turn back and come back to the right path. The next verse, Surah number 20, verse number 22 of Surah Hadid says, لِكَيْلَ. It's also given us the reason for verse number 21. It says, لِكَيْلَ تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. So that you may not grieve, no musibat falls upon you. Just to remind you the previous verse. No musibat falls upon you. No affliction comes on the land and on your souls, except that it was written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was already documented. Why? لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا. So that you may not grieve for what escapes you, nor boast for what comes your way. It's already written. Now there's no need to feel grievance about it. There's no need to be saddened about it. And no need to boast about what is being received by you. And Allah does not like the swaggering braggart. He said He does not like mukhtalin fakhur, the one who's taking pride and bragging and boasting about himself. Points over here worth mentioning is that mukhtal is in the meaning of arrogance and imagining oneself as bigger than others. One of the seeds of arrogance is this mukhtal. Right away insan brags and boasts. The thing that let shaitan out of the heavens was the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls him to be la'een in Quran. The accursed one is his arrogance. Arrogance of comparing himself with Hazrat Adam when Allah had asked Shaitan and all the other angels to prostrate in front of Allah, in front of Adam, to bow down in front of Adam. Why? Because فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. After he has فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. After I created Adam and blew my soul into him and had given him the knowledge, now because of the ta'azim of Hazrat Adam, he was asking them to bow down. But he said, no, I won't, because I'm better than him. Because of this arrogance, his ibadat for 6,000 years were nullified, and also he was kicked out of there. He was referred to as Rajim and La'een by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this arrogance is the first step, in other words, towards ilhad, towards denying everything and also denying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This verse is explaining the reason behind the previous verse. That is, we told you the events before they take place, we had written them and decreed them, so that you don't feel sad over losing a favor, nor become excited over gaining one. Let it be known that all the favors from God are a trust lent to you for time being. You should use them to their fullest. There's no need to say, okay, well, I'm not going to use them. No, use it to the fullest, because He has given you these favors. But do not attach yourself with these favors thinking that they will be long lasting and forever. Allah might take them away whenever He wishes to, but know that they will be taken away. Therefore, do not make them to be your aim and objective. The problem is, sometimes we make these things to be our aim and objective. When we make these things which are temporary to be our aims and objective, this is where we fall victim to it. All the bitter and sweet incidents are black and white steps for you to rise and reach perfection. Without paying much attention to the color of these steps, one must pass through them swiftly. Good things are happening, don't pay too much attention. Bad things are happening, don't pay too much attention. Just that it is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Black and white is all simple for you, so you can see it. These steps are clear. Don't pay too much attention towards the color of these steps. Rather, just pass through these steps as swiftly as possible to reach the perfection that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has waiting for you. We can understand our role by looking at a bank's teller. A person who works at the bank, the teller that you go all the time. What's his duty? His duty is to take money from the people and then deposit it. So he doesn't get excited over receiving all this money, because he's just putting it in the trust, in the bank, in the vault. And then the next day the same person might come and want to withdraw this money. So he's not going to feel sad, or why is he withdrawing the money? At one, he did not become excited with all the money that this person deposited. Tomorrow the same person comes and takes all the money out. This teller is not going to feel sad, why all the money is leaving now. No. This is the same thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to explain to us. This example is very obvious in front of us, that He has given you something as a trust and lent it to you. You deposit it. Tomorrow He might come and ask you, give me that thing back. And so you can't really say, no, I'm not going to give it back. Why? Because it's not my property. No, it never was your property. Allah had loaned it to you. Now He's asking it back from you. Salawat Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. God, by telling us that everything is part of a system designed from before in order to bring your souls to the heights of perfection, so that these bitter and sweet events no longer affect you. We see that in the court of Yazid, even Janab Zainab salamullahi alayha, after facing such turmoil in Karbala, all the musibat that fell, after seeing her brother, and after seeing our brothers rather, and after seeing the children, and after seeing the nephews and whatnot get killed in front of her eyes, how a woman could bear such pain. But still Janab Zainab had the composure to go through such a musibat, pass through all the difficulties from Kufa all the way to Sham, and while standing in the darbar of Yazid, when he is asking the same question, how Imam Sajjad replied by saying, no, that ayat is not for us. Rather, ayat number 21 of Surah Hadid is revealed, which explains our situation better, that Allah has already written this upon us, and we had to go through all of this. When Janab Zainab was asked and posed with the same question by Yazid as to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala insulted you, how you become captives of this, and how you are humiliated, you know what she replied by saying? She said, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I do not see this as anything but beauty. There's beauty in it. What kind of reply is this that Janab Zainab is giving? Imagine this darbar is filled with the enemies. Imagine this darbar is something which is chanting against the grandson of Rasulullah. This darbar is all against, their swords are all against these. And these are helpless women now standing in front of, even without their veils, to the extent that if a woman has veils, they can cover themselves. They're without veils. And at that point, this head of their state is asking Janab Zainab, addressing her by saying, look how Allah insulted you. Reply that comes by saying, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. It's a philosophical answer that cannot be summarized in a few minutes. But how is she saying? She said, I do not see except beauty in it. The philosophical answer is that when you go by a mirror, once you look in the mirror to see your own self, once you look at the exterior of the mirror because you're buying it. When you go to a shop to buy a mirror, you're not looking at your own reflection in the mirror. You see that all the time. You're actually looking at the exterior of the mirror to see how good or beautiful this mirror is that could find a place inside your house. So you're looking at it by saying, Ma ra'aytu illa jamina. You are looking at it from one end that we are all killed and we are made captives, and you think that we have been humiliated, but no, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. This is nothing but beauty in it. Why? Because this is what Allah had decreed, and we did what Allah had decreed, so there's nothing but beauty that lies in this. And this is where we see that Imam Hussein, in the face of death, in the last moments of his life, he said, "Oh Allah, I'm pleased with your decree and I'm forbearing in front of these trials and tribulations." He said, "Radan biqada'ika sabran ala bala'ika." I'm radhi with all of your decrees, and I'm sabir and forbearant and patient towards all the turmoils that fall upon me. And this is where we see Amir al-Mu'mineen also say, he compares his passion and intimacy towards shahadat with the love of a child towards his mother. It says, "Wallahi li ibn Abi Talib anisun bil maut min at-tifl bi thadi ummihi." That Ali ibn Abi Talib is so fond of shahadat. He's so fond and passionate towards the shahadat with maut, the way a child is towards the chest of his mother. How an infant is fond towards the chest of the mother. He said Ali ibn Abi Talib is same way fond towards and has passion towards this maut as well. If we considered the events of this world based on the knowledge and wisdom of Allah, and not coincidental and without a reason, we won't get jealous, there won't be any greed, we won't feel mad, and we won't feel enmity, since we know that it is also designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now that I have brought you towards Karbala, we see that in this land, where as it is when Imam approaches this land, there are certain events that take place. And Imam, you can see that who will be affected by it and who will not be affected by it. And this is where Imam says certain things to certain individuals, because Imam can see who will have this effect on him. When we see the first person who blocks Imam's path is Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. He comes and he blocks Imam's path. It stops him from moving forward. When they go in an unidentified direction and they reach, which was the place known as, someone said it was Shati'ul Furat, someone said it was Nainaba, someone says it was Ghazariya, someone said it was Karbala. He said, yes, this is land of Karbun wa Bala. Indeed, it is the land of Karbala. This is where when Hur had come, Imam gave water to all of their animals as well as them. So they gave water to the people, but also gave water to their animals. Imam is doing all of this for a purpose. And when he stopped the lagam of Imam's horse, Imam's sawari, he stopped it from going further. Imam said a sentence. He said, "May your mother sit in your grief. May your mother sit in your grief." Imam knows who this person is and what kind of reply he will get. Who replies by saying what? He said, "Your mother is so high that I cannot repeat the same sentence for you." Who understands the mother of Imam Hussein? It's Janab Fatima. He said, "If it wasn't Janab Fatima, your mother, I would have replied by saying the same thing to you, that may your mother sit in your grief." Imam knows this will have asar on the ruh of Hur ibn Yazid. And this is where we see that Imam said this. And then third incident that takes place, where Imam ﷺ is getting ready to perform namaz. What does he say to Hur? He said, "Go ahead and pray your namaz. We're going to go ahead and pray our namaz." Hur said, "No, Imam. When it comes to ibadat, it belongs to your household. We're going to stand behind you and we're going to perform this namaz right behind you." Three things that happen. And you see these three things will come back on the day of Ashur, when there's a fight between Haqq and Batil, when there are two groups standing in front of one another. This is where Hur, who was known as the biggest of the warriors of Kufa, when he is seen in this situation, people looking at Hur, they say, "Oh Hur, we consider you be the bravest of the warriors. Why do we see you in a situation where it seems like that you're nervous or you're scared?" He says, "I see myself in between hell and the heaven." This is the reply of Hur. He said, if I remain over here, I see myself going towards the hell. But if I go join the army of Imam Hussein, I see myself to be given salvation and joining in the heaven. This is where Hur makes this journey. All of us make journeys in our life. हर शख्स जो है एक जर्नी करता है, एक सफर करता है. हुर का ये सफर शुरू होता है, हुर की ये हिजरत शुरू होती है, हिजरत करता है हुर उस ख़याम से इमाम हुसैन के ख़याम की तरफ पहुंचते हैं. जब इमाम की तरफ अपने आप को आके ज़मीन पे गिरा दिया, ज़मीन पे गिराने के बाद से इमाम ने कहा, इरफ़ा रासक, अपने सर को उठाओ. कौन हो? कहा, मौला मैं आपका गुलाम हुर हूँ. मैं ही हूँ कि जिसने लगाम थामी थी आपके घोड़े की. अरे मैं ही हूँ जिसने पानी बंद किया था आपके ऊपर. अरे मैं ही हूँ जिसने रास्ता काटा था आपका. इमाम को वो बातें याद दिलाएं. कहा, इमाम से क्या मेरी मग़फ़िरत हो सकती है? इस वक्त इमाम ने कहा, हाँ हुर तुम्हारी भी मग़फ़िरत हो सकती है. आप देखिएगा हुर ने क्या ख्वाहिश जाहिर की. इमाम मैं चाहता हूँ कि सबसे पहले जाम शहादत नोश करूँ. इस वक्त हुर का फर्जंद है, हुर के फर्जंद खुद जाना चाहता है. जाते हैं मक्तल की तरफ. अब जैसे ही मक्तल का रुख किया था हुर के फर्जंद ने, वहां पहुंचते हैं और शहीद होने के बाद से जब बाबा को सदा दी है तो एक दफा हुर उठे हैं कि जाके फर्जंद की लब्बैक की तरफ बढ़े. लेकिन क्या देखा, इमाम ने हुर को रोक लिया. कहा, हुर किस तरीके से जवान बेटे की लाश को उठाओगे? इमाम खुद जाते हैं लाश को उठाने. मैं कहूंगा, मौला आपने हुर को तो रोक दिया कि जवान बेटे की लाश है कैसे उठाओगे? अरे जब आपका कड़ियल जवान अली अकबर जमीन पे आएगा तो आप किस तरीके से जाएंगे? अला लानतुल्लाह अल कौम ज़ालिमीन.